So welcome back to How Did They Play, and we're now looking at the left backs for our teams of questionable quality. So Adam, who is your left back of questionable quality?
So, try to throw in a red herring at the end of the right back section, but I have actually gone for an Arsenal left back as well.
We got so many that are so bad. That's the problem.
And Cash, me and you we've mentioned this person quite recently, actually. So mine, you know exactly what I'm going to say. My left back is one. No,
Okay.
It was Miles Lewis-Skelly before Miles Lewis-Skelly was born. I've gone for Andre Santos.
Oh, class. Yeah, he's probably the worst ever.
He is, yeah, he's up there.
I was getting some absolute pelters on that TikTok that we put up about did he even know that Nuno Tavares played? I was like, Nuno Tavares, to be fair, when he started out was actually all right, but he just went really downhill really quickly. But Andre Santos was never all right. Never.
No. I mean, at least Miles Lewis-Skelly and Nuno Tavares have more than 23 appearances for Arsenal.
Yeah.
After being signed for €7 million.
Wow.
I mean, I thought I was talking bad about Carl Jenkinson. You signed him for €1 million, but the fact that you brought Andre Santos for €7 million and he paid 23 times is ridiculous.
And we talk about players' numbers, mate.
Yeah.
Number 11. What was that about? Number 11.
Flying down the left-hand side he was. He used to fly down there.
Oh, honestly. Did you boys know that Andre Santos played 24 times for Brazil? He played more times for Brazil than he did for Arsenal.
How's he playing for Brazil? He was so bad.
Between the years of 2009 and 2013, he made 24 appearances for Brazil and only managed 23 appearances for Arsenal.
The game I remember him most in was that 5-3 win against Chelsea. I remember him playing in that because obviously the goals that Robin van Persie scored in that game were unbelievable.
Yep.
But I remember him because he was a starting left back on that day. And I don't remember anything else about his performances because they were just poor.
Fact for you boys here that I've just read up about. So on November the 3rd, Arsenal are playing Man United. And at half-time, Santos came under a lot more criticism during that game because he was rubbish. But at half-time, it became pretty intense. At half-time, he swapped shirts with the United player at the time, Robin van Persie, at half-time. So not even at full-time. He swapped shirts with him at half-time. Like, you don't do that, do you?
No,
like,
you don't.
I get it. It's Robin van Persie. It's like, I get it. It's Robin van Persie, but you don't do it at half-time. You do it at the end of the game. And also, you don't swap. If you're a Man United player, you don't swap shirts with an Arsenal player. And if you're an Arsenal player, you definitely don't swap shirts with Robin van Persie. That's like a no-no.
Literally just left the club, hadn't he, only a few months earlier in the summer to sign for United.
Yeah.
And then to go and Van Persie came under a lot of stick from Arsenal supporters for that. They really disliked him. So to do that even at full time, he'd have got some stick. But to do it at half time, that's embarrassing. That's really embarrassing.
That is like that, honestly, and that probably sums up his actual. Oh no, that is definitely his low point, because his high point, he scored his first ever Arsenal goal in a 2-1 win over Olympiacos in the Champions League.
And he scored against Chelsea in that 5-3.
He did score
celebrated by doing a samba dance. He loved it.
So you've gone from quite a low bar in terms of highs to a really, 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 really low bar in terms of swapping shirts with Robin van Persie at half time. It's not. It doesn't look good, does it? It doesn't look good. It really doesn't.
So bad.
Honestly, horrendous.
And then, soon after we signed Nacho Monreal, and he ended up becoming an Arsenal legend. So, yeah, and then has an interesting career afterwards, and just basically he spends all of his time in Brazil, doesn't he? Apart from going to Fenerbahce before Arsenal, and then goes back to Brazil and everywhere else for there. But 338 career appearances, which I suppose is really good for him. but his actual time at Arsenal.
Scored 60 goals. 60 goals. Not bad, is it? For a left back.
Yeah, for a left back, that's not bad going.
But
he scored 10 for Fenerbahce in 55. That's yeah.
Maybe he wasn't playing left back. Maybe he was playing up front. Maybe he put on his Robin van Persie shirt at half time that he took and thought, I'm going to go play up front this half.
I bet he ended up playing on the wing. I bet he ended up when he went to all these clubs.
Well, it says he played left back, attacking midfielder, and a left winger. So you'd imagine in Brazil, and probably for Fenerbahce as well, you'd imagine that he probably was more of a left winger, left midfielder, wouldn't you? You'd imagine.
Yeah.
Left wing back, maybe. Yeah.
He plays for some clubs I don't even know who they are. You know, some Russian clubs that I've never even heard of.
No. I mean, obviously I've heard of Grumero, Flamengo, Botafogo, obviously Fenerbahce, Arsenal, and, you know, the others, but some of the ones I wouldn't know. I wouldn't even know how to pronounce them. And I'm not going to.
No. So that's Adam's left back going into his team of questionable quality. Connor, who's yours?
So mine is a man who his career felt like it was just a long injury layoff, to be fair, that was interrupted by the odd occasional appearance. And he arrived at Newcastle as part of the great French Revolution at the club, but didn't go on to sort of become as good as the likes of Debussy or Yohan Cabaye. So mine is Masadio Haidara.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to go David Santon. I thought, because I was thinking about him before, but Haïdara, he is questionable, mate. Questionable.
Very, very questionable. Started out in France and was playing for Nancy and made a few appearances there, 46 appearances for the senior squad there, and then got his move to Newcastle in January 2013. £2 million they reckon they paid for him. He was the 9th first-team player at Newcastle then with French nationality, and he was the 4th of 5 players of French nationality signed in that January 2013 transfer window. So, you know, when we talk about the French Revolution, the big influx at Newcastle at that time, he was a big part of that. Mm-hmm. At Newcastle, he ended up making 38 Premier League appearances. He got 1 assist. He didn't score any goals, and he managed to get 4 clean sheets in those 38 appearances. He was essentially defined by his injuries, his inconsistency, and long spells that he would have out of the team. He only actually made 23 starts of those 38 appearances in the Premier League. And really, his key moment actually isn't something that he did. It was something that actually was done to him. And that was in March 2013, so only a couple of months after he signed for the club. They were playing against Wigan, and Callum McManaman launched into a knee-high tackle on him, and it meant he had to go to hospital. I remember the challenge at the time, it was horrific. But what the problem was is that the referee didn't see it, and the linesman didn't see it clearly enough, so couldn't include it fully in their match report. So no action was taken against Callum McManaman at the time. And that was the incident that then became the catalyst for the change in terms of the retrospective disciplinary reform. So then if things weren't spotted, they could go back and look at it and then give out bans or suspensions based on then once they'd rewatched it. So that essentially is like his most famous moment, possibly of his career, certainly of his Premier League spell at Newcastle, is that.
The fact that he gets challenged.
I mean, like, if you go and have a look at it, it's dreadful. Like, he absolutely flies at him and takes him by the knee. It's really bad. It's really bad. He was part of the Newcastle side that got relegated in the 2015-16 season. And then in the 2016-17 season, when they won the championship, he made his first league appearance for the club in that season on the final day of the season. He did not play a single minute until the last game of the season when he was brought on against Barnsley and they clinched the championship title. And then the year after, when they were back in the Premier League, the 17-18 season, again, it was the final game of the season that he waited to make his first appearance of the season. So, you know, he wasn't like a squad rotation player. He's we forgot he was here, maybe we should chuck him on for a few minutes at the end of the season. Like, that's the sort of player that he was.
How did he go? Because he signed with, I'm guessing, some promise. Because playing 46 times for Nancy. Before that, you think he's coming in to actually start, especially with their French Revolution, as you said, that they had. You think he'd be starting, wouldn't you?
Well, you look at some of the other players that came in as part of that. Johan Kabais, Musa Sissoko, Debussy, Gouffron, Mapu Yangamabiwa. Some of those weren't great either, but showed a little bit more promise than Haïdara ever did. And he was probably the one really that never got going. The others did get regular game time and did have moments where they looked like good players. I don't think Haïdara ever looked like a good player when he was at Newcastle. He never really got the opportunity. He was injured a lot as well, but he never really showed any of that promise whilst he was there. He went on to build his career back up again a little bit more after he left. He made over 150 appearances for Lens once he signed for them after he left Newcastle. He then played at Brest for a year, made 22 appearances there, and he's currently at, I think it's Kocaelispor in Turkey. He signed for them.
He's still playing?
Last July. Yeah, he's still playing. He's made 12 appearances for them.
No way.
So far, yeah. Still playing. He he represented France at under 19, under 20 and under 21 level, but then he was called up to the Mali national team and has played then at senior level for them. He was supposed to take part in the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations with Mali, but he injured himself the morning of the announcement of the list of players that were being selected, and so therefore then was absent from the squad and couldn't go, which I think just about sums up his career.
That sums him up, yeah. But played a lot of time for Lens after he left Newcastle. Yeah. So he clearly just wasn't favoured at Newcastle, but 2012 all the way through to 2018. It's a long time to not be playing, but I suppose now he's playing catch up, isn't he? He's trying to still playing at the top level. Yeah. Still playing at top level. Liga, and then you've got in the Super League in Turkey as well. Yeah, he's still playing at a high level. So Haïdara, I've got one slightly left field, and I'll be honest, mate, I really struggled with a left back. Because I think, as you've just said, Haïdara, it has to be like the second choice left back. David Santon was the main left back. It has to be someone who's probably the second, because a left back, predominantly, they're playing for years. Same with the right back, really. They're consistently there every week. I think that's just the nature of the position, maybe. And the fact that, what you want a solid fullback, don't you? You want someone who's solid. So I've gone for a player who was solid. He's an Icelandic footballer, Hermann Hrei.
He was some player.
Now, you think about Premier League nostalgia. I mean, he is Premier League nostalgia, isn't he?
Oh, he is your definition of a Barclaysman.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolute definition.
So I'm not going to try and pronounce these places he grew up in and came from because they're all Icelandic teams and I will butcher them all. But he born in Reykjavik and then started to build up his career, going to several Icelandic teams across the region, and eventually he ends up at Crystal Palace. And he played for Crystal Palace in 1997 to 98 season, and he played 37 times for them. He actually scored at Stamford Bridge against Chelsea, which I didn't know about. But he was one of Palace's better performers. But as we will see with his career, he was relegated with Palace. So his first stint in the Premier League, he was relegated. He then goes to Brentford after that for 98-99 season. He played a centre-back and left-back. And he signed for a club record at the time for $750,000 at Brentford. He eventually then, and I didn't know this because I know Hreiðarsson from like Portsmouth, and that's where I'm thinking about him playing majority of his career. He actually went to Wimbledon under the Crazy Gang.
I didn't know that he played there. I had no idea he played for Wimbledon.
Yeah, 25 times he played for them. They signed him for $2.5 million. So his fee is rising, everywhere he's going at the moment. He can be a bit rash, but very, very aggressive in his tackles and perfect for that Crazy Gang style football. But they were relegated again. So he was relegated under those at Wimbledon. And Ipswich Town he then goes to. So from 2000 to 2003, he goes to Ipswich, and his big money for Ipswich at the time, they spent $4 million on him. And you think of $4 million on left back at that time.
Yeah.
He's 102 times though.
A left back that's been relegated at his previous 2 Premier League clubs as well. You know, it doesn't bode well, does it?
He just must have been a consistent performer, I presume, for him. He was part of the Ipswich side. I mean, we've covered them previously on the podcast when we looked at Titus Bramble. But they finished 5th in the Premier League.
Yeah, that Ipswich side at the time was seriously stacked with players who went on to have solid and very good Premier League careers. When I drew Ipswich in the first episode or second episode of the LQQ, and I looked at players there, Hermann Hrei was one of the players I considered before I went for Titus Bramble. Yeah,
because just questionable quality, because of the relegations, because of the amount of appearances he made, but it's just Premier League nostalgia. He then went to Charlton and made 132 appearances for them, playing between 2003 and 2007. He signed for 900 grand, which was deemed as a bargain at the time.
It's a big drop, isn't it? After Ipswich paid $4.5 million for him to let him go then for 900k.
Yeah, Ipswich actually. Sorry, I should have said they got relegated, and they later went into administration. So they must have been just selling every asset they had for whatever money they could get. Yeah. And Charlton, he went to Charlton from 2003 to 2007. And then, shock horror, he got relegated again, playing for them. But he played in Charlton's best years of Premier League. You know, and that's where actually I came up with the idea of getting Hreiðarsson in, because I was looking at Charlton's ex-players that they used to have. And then he went to Portsmouth on a free and ends up making 102 Premier League appearances for those, for that team. He is an FA Cup winner, so he's managed to win something in 2008, and he started the final at left back for them. He was later inducted into Portsmouth's Hall of Fame because of his quality that he had, and he's part of that iconic side, and a lot of players were entered into the Hall of Fame because of that. But he
was there, wasn't he? Really, at a really difficult time. That time he was there as well, because that's when they then went into administration during that time, wasn't it? And they started to lose players and drop down the divisions. And he didn't sort of move immediately when all that trouble started.
So he ends up getting relegated for a 5th time. It's the joint Premier League record that he holds for getting relegated 5 times with all different clubs that he's had. He later goes on to have a career at Coventry City. He only makes 2 appearances and then ends up returning to Iceland and retiring at the age of 40. And now he's transitioned into coaching and management. So, you know, he's a big, tall lad, 6'3", you know, very mobile, you know, at a lot of pace, really good technical quality, very strong, very tactically aware. Defending durability was brilliant. You know, he was a trusted fullback. You know, but you're talking about someone who, yes, he's questionable quality, but over 330 Premier League appearances, which is massive, isn't it?
He was a solid, fairly solid player. He's somebody that certainly I remember him, you know, running down that left hand side. For Portsmouth, I remember a couple of the goals he scored. You know, some of the goals he scored were absolute, were screamers that he managed to bag.
Yeah.
And he was always one of those players that he just, again, a little bit like when we spoke about Abue at right back, he just felt like a little bit of a vibes player. Like he just felt like he was, like he loved playing football. He just absolutely loved being a part of the squad. But was also like, I think he was also a bit of a hard man as well. He's certainly not somebody I'd be messing with on the pitch.
Oh, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I mean, like, if he put one on you with his head, like, you're gone, you're done.
Yeah, just it's brilliant to see a player like that, you know, from Iceland, a really small country. And, you know, he's one of several that have played in the Premier League from Iceland. There's not many that have played. And to play consistently, you know, he's a proper Premier League fullback.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just reading about his managerial and his coaching career. He signed David James when he was manager of Uvar Saladid. I've butchered that. That's not. Oh no!
Is that not the Blasters,
that's the league? That's the league. That's the league.
Oh, right, okay.
IBV.
That was
he
easy to say.
He was manager there. Then he spent 3 years at Fylkir, who are in Iceland, and he managed the men's team for the 2015 and 16 season, and then he managed the women's team during the 2017 season.
No way.
Which I think is unbelievable. And then in January 2018, he teamed up with David James again, because David James was the manager then at Kerala Blasters.
That's why I just said the Blasters.
So
I thought David James played for the Blasters in the Indian Super League, but I didn't know he played for IBV. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so David James was then the manager of the Blasters. Hermann Hrei was his assistant. And then he was also an assistant to Sol Campbell when he was manager at Southend.
No, was he?
Yeah. Yeah, October
right. Who's the manager of Pompey at the minute?
At Pompey now, it's...
Is it John Massadio still?
Yeah.
Mate, get him. Like, he's still managing now, obviously, Hreiðarsson. He's going to be Pompey manager soon, isn't he? Put it out there now. He's going to be Pompey manager.
It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest.
I hope he is. I hope he does. And then now he's, I don't know what that name is. Prabhuta Vogam. But that's me saying it as it's read. And then IBV, he goes back there. And then he's at HK. And now he's at Vola,
Vola, I think, yeah.
Vola, yeah. In the second division?
I don't know. It's the men's best division, the highest level of Icelandic football league system.
Oh, so in the top league then? They finished second last year. Mate, what a career.
Yeah. I mean, to do what he did predominantly in the English game, and to then go back over to Iceland and be there and, starting to bring a little bit of, not necessarily success, but stability, I would imagine, and to be doing well in his time at management there after having spent the majority of his playing career over in England, fair play to him.
If you're watching the podcast and you're a fan of IBV, he's a legend for them. He played for him twice. Didn't make loads of appearances, 70 in total. Then goes and manages twice, being a player manager and as then the permanent manager. He's an IBV legend. I'd love to hear off the Icelandic fans in the comments if you could let us know what he's like, and especially any Valur fans, because you're going to eventually lose him to Pompey. He's going to be Pompey manager eventually, and he's going to bring the whole band back together. You're going to have John Utaka, assistant manager. I tell you what, Jermaine Defoe, because he's obviously working now at Woking, he'll eventually become manager at Pompey. You're bringing Hreiðarsson as his assistant. John Utaka as a striker coach.
Yeah,
get the band back together.
Goalkeeper coach.
Get the band back together.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. So they are our three players at left back for our teams of questionable quality. So tune in next time where we look at both centre backs.